in
Okay.
Hong Kong, you've been in Houston, you went to Wheaton. I know you went, according to your
Uh,
public persona, you've gone to Georgetown too.
mhm.
And now you're in DC. But give us a little bit of your bio.
Sure. Yeah. So I was just geographically, I'm a bit of a mutt. I love meeting people who have very strong roots in one place and go back generations in one zip code. And I'm always a little envious, but there's pros and cons to both. So I born in Boston. When I was 4, family moved to Hong Kong. When I was 8, moved to Sydney, Australia. We had quite a lot of opportunities in that time to travel around mostly East Asia. And then came back to the Boston area. So it wasn't forever. It was, just a little over 6 years, but it was enough of that kind of magic formation time where it didn't really know any different, that it was a little unusual to feel like one of the only Americans in a context and all that. So I think it did just give me a forever bug to kind of be on the edge of the inside of different kinds of more homogenous communities and be fascinated by cultural comparisons. So yeah, back in the New England area, I heard, you talk about going to Gordon Conwell. Before we moved overseas, actually, I pseudo learned how to walk, according to parental lore, on Crane's Beach. Did you ever go there?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So, and there was like a great apple farm nearby. I can't remember what it's called in Ipswich
Yeah.
but I just remember like apple donuts and stuff. So when we moved back to the, Boston area, we wound up in a town called Andover on the North Shore. So I
on the North Shore.
I can't quite do the accent.
I was in Peabody.
I mean, I can crack the cod. That's the only thing. That's like too cliche. But beyond that, I really can't do the accent. It's funny. Neither of my parents are from the area, so they didn't have the accent. And then I went to a high school. I was a day student, but I went to this high school that attracted boarding students from all over the world. And so there wasn't like a huge New England. I mean, it was New England. It was New England institutionally. It wasn't so New England like culturally. So that was that. Very pretty, wonderful high school in many ways. Very rigorous, unique experience, I think, to be that age and back in a bit of an international environment. Very secular. I had a sort of conversion experience as a sophomore in the context of a church youth group, Grace Chapel, if that church means anything to you. And then read this book called The Scandal of the Evangelical Mind when I was a junior or senior, and found it very intriguing and thought, okay, all my peers here are going to largely New England colleges, maybe like pretty elite schools. I'm going to go to my college counselor and see if she's ever heard of a place called Wheaton College in Illinois, if that's where this guy Mark Knoll used to be. I'm just interested in this whole idea of integrating faith and learning. And I remember the college counseling office was like, what is this? Why would you leave a place like Andover and go to a place like Wheaton? That seems like a big step backwards in all the sort of meritocratic norms that they had as like what mattered in terms of prestige and name brand and recognition. And just the fact that it had, this is before the word evangelical became a 4-letter word, but it still was affiliated with kind of a subculture that a sort of New England brain thought was like anathema to everything good and enlightened and sophisticated. So anyways, I did wind up choosing to go to Wheaton. And so that was its own huge culture shock and great formation. I can keep going. You want me to just
keep going? This is awesome. By the way, I gotta stop you though. Mark Knoll's coming on next week.
Oh, no way. That is so crazy. It's so funny. He's a piece for comment actually that's in my pile to edit. And I have not actually seen him in person since I graduated almost 20 years ago. He had left for Notre Dame. He was there when I went. And then by the time he left for Notre Dame, but it was just so cool. When I graduated Wheaton, I was asked to give this like little talk around the baccalaureate or something. And he was invited back to give the commencement address. And I keep feeling, he's had, in a way, we hardly know each other, but he did have such a impact just in that, those like people who wind up paving these sort of enunciation moments for what become, consequential choices. So Wheaton, imperfect place, but for me, and given my kind of where I'd come from, very grateful for that education in that time. I wound up as a philosophy major. I was like the only person who Didn't have dreadlocks in that major, but I loved it. Pretty male dominated, I would say. I kind of liked that too, actually. It was fun. Like, I don't know, you just like, but I don't mean that in an overly, I mean, maybe there was some flirting going on, but it was probably more just like in the Wheaton context, these Christian colleges can be very, why are you laughing?
No, because I went to Christian colleges. I know exactly what you're talking
about.
So
like,
this is kind of way you flirt, it's just the way it goes.
It's just the way. And I think sometimes I felt like it was a shock to me coming from a pretty academically aggressive, no holds barred intellectual environment in high school to go to a context like Wheaton, which under the water, I joke, like Wheaties are kind of like swans, like acting very chill and smooth and like gliding across the water above, but underneath they're like going furiously, but they're not going to show off about that. It's because you need to sort of be a little bit publicly pious, or it's like, we care about who you are, not what you do, like all those things, which are, I would say, good values, but as it pertained to gender, and this is going back 20 years, but there were I think there was some hangover from an earlier era where it sort of seemed like if you were a female student, you were either going to teach kindergarten and get married by age 22, 23, and nothing wrong at all with either of those things, but the sort of like impulse to express an original thought and challenge a professor and duke it out, all of those kinds of modes of engaging with ideas tended to be more of like a male thing in that sort of Christian college context. So I was attracted to the philosophy major because it kind of felt like a place full of permission to just go for it in those ways. I wasn't great at it. I remember getting quite a few C's and B's. It was hard.